All right. We are back here at Song of the Day, coming to you from the Rock Cave. I'm your host, Mark Pierce. It is Monday, right? It's Monday. We are late again in the cave. That might be the case all week. I don't know what time these are going to post. To keep it short and sweet, maybe I've just been in the rock and roll business for too long. Those hips, those backs, they just give out on you. I don't know how Mick does it. I don't know how Keith does it. They must have a lot of people in their corner. I don't know. Who knows? But speaking of those two cats, that's what we're doing. We're going back to December 5th, 1969, when the album Let It Bleed comes out. The Rolling Stones, again, we've talked about it. You're either a fan or you're not, or maybe you're a casual fan. A lot of people just end up buying Hot Rocks, right? Volume 1 and 2, the double CD set that had all the hits. Or you just listened to the Rock Block Weekend and heard all the stuff there. But you had to be a really big fan to go back and buy the actual full album that would have 2 songs here, 1 song there, 4 songs there, right? I mean, those are the really big fans. I didn't even do that. I wanted Hot Rocks, and that just had all the hits. You know, that's the thing there. So I didn't ever own Let It Bleed. So that's just an interesting thing about me. And you know I'm a Stones fan, but they haven't come up a ton here in the Rock Cave. And this is an important record. This is their 10th American studio album and their 8th British studio album. It's complicated with the labels that they were on, the 2 different labels, and then some were merged 2 albums into 1 album, and Aftermath, I think, was one of them. But anyway, there was a whole bunch of stuff like that. So anyway, this record, right after Beggar's Banquet, I think. This is the one after that. I do believe that's correct. And they went back to more of their blues roots here that they had done, speaking of Aftermath, in some of those earlier records. Brian Jones, during this time, it was a tough time for the band. He was doing a lot of drugs, was not reliable, wasn't showing up, couldn't do the work, and they ended up firing him mid-session and hiring Mick Taylor. And so Brian Jones only appears on 2 songs, and he's not very much of a contribution as far as that's concerned, and he would go on to die 2 months later. There were no charting songs, really, no high charting songs, I should clarify that, no high charting songs off this record. But there are 2 very important songs on this record as far as rock and roll is concerned, and that's what makes this the number 42 album of all time on people's list or something like that. I read that somewhere. But 2 songs off this record would be played on classic rock radio for generations, and that's why we're here today, and we're going to talk about those. The songs that aren't those 2 don't get as much of my attention, but let's talk about that album cover first. The album cover is for those of you who know what a record player is, a lot of people know what a record player is because they're kind of back in style now, but there's that record player with Let It Bleed on it, and then you know how you used to be able to stack a record on top, like stack the 45 so they would drop. You could play them for only so many. You could do that with albums, but that was hard because they were big, and if 3 dropped, then it'd be an issue. But the things stacked on the cover are things like a tin can with the master of Let It Bleed, and there's a bicycle tire in there, and there's cake on there, and then there's figurines that are supposed to be the band. The cover was originally, they approached the legendary M.C. Escher to do the cover for them, and he declined. So that's not what happened. But anyway, that's your funky cover for this record. Songs on here that you might not know, or you might know, but you don't hear as much. Love in Vain, Let It Bleed, obviously, Midnight Rambler, Monkey Man. Those are the kinds of things that would pop up occasionally on the radio. But the 2 songs you need to talk about the most here are, first and foremost, or not just first, is You Can't Always Get What You Want. Great song, right? One of the first early Stones songs that I ever loved. And this was originally a B-side to Honky Tonk Woman in July of 69. Figure that out. It was a B-side, and it didn't do anything. Of course, it didn't chart or anything because it was a B-side. And then they added it to this record, re-released it, and it charted. It ended up somewhere in the the 40s, I think, and that's concerned. But Mick Jagger, while recording it, he did want a gospel choir at the beginning or somewhere in there. They couldn't find one. And Charlie Watts was having trouble with the tempo or the music, and so they ended up using Jimmy Miller as the drummer on this one, a producer and drummer who's done a lot of work with a lot of different things. And of course, they ended up with that choir at the beginning. The radio edit is 4 minutes and 51 seconds, and the album version is 7 minutes and 28 seconds. So that's obviously what you get on Song of the Day. Because you have 2 songs of the day, you'll get that version as a bonus. And so that's a great song. I mean, what's not to like? Even the most casual of Stones fan has to like. You can't always get what you want, I would think. And then last but not least, by any stretch of the imagination, is Gimme Shelter, my favorite all-time song of all time by any band. The opening track, and it's Rolling Stone magazine, when they reviewed it, said this is one of the band's best song to date, their best work. It says Gimme Shelter on the early pressings of the albums Gimme, and then after that the standard is Gimme, Gimme Shelter. Long story about this. They're recording this, they're mixing it late into the night, and they had something's missing, and they said that we need someone to belt this out. They got Mary Clayton out there, who was a friend of the guy that's mixing it, and he calls her up, rings her up in the middle of the night. It's raining, she's pregnant, wakes her up, bring her down to the studio, and she just belts out at the last minute, rape, murder, it's just a shot away. And she did only a few takes, but that one you hear on the record is the first take. That was the first time she ever sang it in the middle of the night, and she nailed it. And if you have read the story about that, that's pretty amazing. And this song is just, again, Desert Island songs. This is one for me, and Gimme Shelter is your other song of the day. Those two right there, awesome Stone songs. We're at 8 minutes. I didn't think we'd get that far in this one, so it's time to scoop. All right, those are your songs of the day. We're talking Let It Bleed today in the cave. While I'm on the mend here, like I said, who knows, time of day for songs of the day this week, but we'll try and churn them out. Have a good one, whatever you're doing, and as usual, I'll catch you on the flip side.